137 of the Edison Building. Present at the board table is Mr. Michael Munoz, Superintendent of Schools, and a non-voting ex officio member of the board. Also present is Ms. Wendy Edgar, the Assistant Board Clerk. Ms. Edgar, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Barlow.
Here.
Mrs. Becker.
Here.
Chair Marvin.
Here.
Mr. Schlusner.
Here.
Ms. Seelinger.
Here.
Mr. Smith. Ms. Workman.
Here.
Pledge of Allegiance, Mr. Munoz.
Yes, tonight we have the pleasure to have students from Franklin Elementary to lead us in the pledge.
Please stand as you're able.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
2.01, approval of agenda. Are there any amendments?
Yes, item 5.03, approval of a world language software program has been removed and will come up at a future meeting.
Move approval. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. 3.01, no barriers. Mr. Munoz.
Yes, at this time I'm going to call Michael Eckerman, Century High School Social Studies teacher, and I'll let him introduce the students.
Well, good evening. I'm Mr. Eckerman. I'm Michael Eckerman from Century High School, and it's my honor and privilege to present to you the barrier breakers from Century High School. I had the honor and privilege last spring to be selected as one of 20 educators to attend the No Barriers Summit in Lake Tahoe. No Barriers is based out of Fort Collins, Colorado, and they work on diversity and inclusion and helping students make sure that everybody has a voice and everybody has a place and feels welcomed. And these students here were selected amongst other Century students to compete. And I'm very excited to share with you that they did win runners-up nationwide in the nationwide contest. And they're here to briefly share some of the highlights of their program. And I do think there maybe was a little video that was produced by No Barriers. Very short. Sure. Yeah, so here, come on, the students from Century would like to share some of the highlights of their. Do you want me to have them go first?
Yeah, they can go first. Yeah.
Sure.
All right. Hi. We are the Barrier Breakers, and we entered a national contest by No Barriers Youth called the Wells Fargo Global Impact Challenge.
The contest involved teams of middle and high school students who worked together to create a project proposal to promote diversity and inclusion in their schools and their communities.
Our team created a storytelling website which contains 3 elements: share, celebrate, and empower.
So in addition to the anonymous personal stories of hardships that people face, mainly middle and high schoolers, we're planning on having a page where people will be able to share stories of how they've been able to overcome these hardships, and we'll be able to empower people by bringing presentations to schools around the area.
To include everyone, we have planned to equip our website with many accessibility tools like translations to most commonly used language in the area, screen reader accessibility, visibility, adjustment, consistent navigation, and more.
We hope to create an archive of personal stories from young people about the struggles they have faced throughout their lives. which will in turn create empathy in those who read these humbling stories.
You never know what someone has gone through and what they struggle with every day. And we hope that our project is able to help people become more kind and understanding. We have been fortunate enough to have earned runner-up award, and our team has received $2,000 to implement our project.
Thank you all for your support, and we look forward to implementing our project in and around our school district.
Working together showed me that when people come from different places, they can come up with solutions to new and different problems.
These students did not all know each other as they started this No Barriers Global Impact Challenge. And through the course of the weeks of planning and learning, they were able to not only create this wonderful idea that could help students at Century and across the state and country, but also they became a closer group with each other. I want to congratulate you as one of the winning teams for the inaugural No Barriers.
Wells Fargo loves to sponsor programs like this because of the impact it has, not only on these students, but on the people that they can impact as well. You can see they have a passion for helping people, and so do we. And so it kind of goes hand in hand to be able to support not only schools, but students, because the outreach will be much greater. And so we love to be involved in community and schools in this way.
The difference that we're going to make is real, and it's going to matter to people.
I think they're going to be kinder, gentler people who care about the world around them, that see the power that they gain, not for themselves, but for their community and for doing good things in the world.
I feel like finally have a way to help the community and create a better environment.
It's really great to make a change.
And my apologies, I forgot to introduce the team. So if you guys would just come stand in front just briefly. Alyssa DeGrand, Amrit Santu, Austin and Ethan Manuel, and Martha Burkett. So thank you very much. Thank you very much for your time.
Michael, congratulations, and congratulations to the students. That's quite an honor, and I agree. I think not only in our schools, but in our community and our society, we need to be more positive and don't focus so much on the negative, but just be positive and treat people, just be nicer. I think that's just something we all need to do. So hopefully the adults can learn from you as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And additionally, as you guys return to your seats, I did have opportunity to review the information, and I'm excited about perhaps a year from now you returning to show us the results on the effect. Thank you.
3.02, MMEA Performance. Mr. Munoz.
Yes, at this time I'm going to have Amanda come up, and I think she has some students with her. She's the Century High School music teacher.
Well, good evening, everyone, and thank you for inviting us to share our news with you this evening. I'm Amanda Kaus, the band director at Century High School, and I have 3 students with me, and I'll allow them to introduce themselves.
I'm Jared Nathan, and I play alto saxophone.
I'm Michaela Pash. I'm a senior oboe player.
I'm Matthew Pash. I'm a senior, and I play the French horn.
As well as Martha from the No Barriers team, but she didn't want to come up too many times this evening. But on Friday, February 23rd, we had the honor of performing at the Minnesota Music Educators Association Midwinter Clinic, which is an annual convention bringing together music educators from around the state of Minnesota, their staff development opportunities, but it also features performances of middle school, high school, and collegiate ensembles. And Century Symphonic Winds, 64 members, was selected last summer as one of 4 high school bands to perform at this year's convention. So we were on weather cooperated. We're able to make it up that Friday morning. The students did a wonderful job representing Century High School. And again, a very high honor for them of what can be awarded within the state of as far as the large ensemble. We also have a small video to share with you. On Wednesday, the 21st, we held a preview concert so that family and friends that weren't able to make it up to the cities could have a chance to hear a concert as well as just give us a run through. And so Ritz was at that concert, and they've also edited, so we have our opening selection titled Fanfare and Flourishes. Ensemble, and in fact last Friday the University of Minnesota Wind Ensemble also came down and we were able to share a concert with them as well. So it's been a busy but rewarding winter season for us, and we'd also like to thank Ms. Workman for being at our performance on the 23rd up in the city. So
yeah, don't go away. This video recording absolutely does not do the band justice. I mean, I was so particularly impressed with your discipline, but more importantly, your musicianship. Your intonation was spectacular. Maybe from where I was sitting, it sounded better than from where you were, but that's always the case. I know that as a former high school orchestra director, but you did yourselves proud. So congratulations. This was just, I was so happy to be there. I'm really glad I came.
Thank you very much.
3.03 Rochester Public School Foundation Grant Awards. Mr. Munoz.
Yes, at this time I'm going to have Melissa and Sue announce the winners.
Hi, thank you. I am very thrilled to be here tonight to talk about the Rochester Public School Foundation and our 2017-18 grant cycle. I'm Melissa Amundsen, this year's president. I have Ginny Amundsen, no relation, but spelled similar, who is this year's secretary. And then we have some grant recipients. For those of you who aren't familiar with Rochester Public School Foundation, we're a nonprofit community foundation that connects the community and our schools to advance and inspire educational opportunities for all students. Our influence occurs mainly through financial support of innovative enhancements to K-12 curriculum that are possibly impeded by limited resources of the school district to staff and educators. The hope is that the educators will have the opportunity to establish pilot programs that may transition at some point in the future to regular curriculum, but basically to support and advance education in general in Rochester. This year we were thrilled to have 14 grant project submissions, and we were able to fund 6 of those. And our grand total this year is $14,090. Most of the grants are $2,500, the upper limit, and most of our educators find a way to use every single one of those dollars. One of our grants is for $1,590 this year, $1,590. Our funds generally come from personal and business donations. This year we were thrilled to partner with Rochester Public Schools in a payroll deduction program so that Rochester Public School employees have the opportunity to see that some of their donations come directly back to the foundation and directly back to the schools. We get some personal donations. We get random people, but mostly the named funds, the dedicated memorial types of funds. We have several of those, and tonight 2 of them are funded by Mike Ladden Fund. I'm thrilled because he was my principal. It was established in 1994 to fund creative educational excellence through innovative participation in education quality in Rochester Public Schools while providing assistance for students who may not otherwise be able to participate. And then, of course, you have all heard of Boo Fest, our fundraiser. A significant number of our grants are funded through that fundraiser. So we want to thank Rochester Public Schools for partnering with us in the facilities and the staff to offer Boo Fest as a fundraiser. And before I introduce the grant recipients and guests, student guests, and each one has been asked to limit their comments to about a minute, but with the students here, they get a few extra seconds for their comments. The follow-up requirements for the grants, they're expected to present a project summary with photos when possible and to share the outcomes and results at a team or a staff meeting. So hopefully in a year and a half, we'll all be able to hear about the results. So to start with, I wasn't able to connect with everybody in the hallway before the meeting, so just in case other people are here before we read their summary. Jenny Bruninger and Guthrie Capicella. Jenny's ready to, are you here? Awesome, so glad you could make it. So if you could read the project summary for us.
Thank you. Our grant is to pilot a Native American learning trunk. The Native American learning trunk contains authentic handmade artifacts created by Native American people. Some examples include beaded moccasins, a buffalo robe, a ladle carved from a deer bone. These objects will provide a rich hands-on experience. Students will be allowed to touch the objects, try the garments on, learn how to play traditional games, and more. No longer will teachers be searching Pinterest for Native American crafts and activities that, while well-intentioned, may be historically inaccurate and disrespectful to Native American peoples. The Learning Trunk will provide a rich experience for our community, and teachers will receive training and support to maximize the effectiveness of this wonderful resource. Thank you very much.
And correct my pronunciation of your name.
Bringer.
Bringer. Jenny Bringer. Thank you. All right. Thank you, Sue. Thank you so much. Thank you. All right. And then we have Catherine Sloan and Elizabeth Quackenbush from Rochester Area Learning Center, the RALC Green Thumb Initiative. And if no one's here, Ginny's prepared to read a summary for them. That wasn't one of them. Okay, well, I messed up on that one. I did not inform her to prepare a summary for that one. And then John is the next one with Internet access for students in need.
So I'd just like to say for my entire life, I've been looking up at people winning grants, and I always wanted to receive one of those giant checks. I'm really disappointed that I'm not getting a giant check, but I'll struggle through. So as you all know, pretty much every class these days is run via the internet. Google Classroom, Moodle, Haiku, all these learning platforms. Homework is done on Google Documents. Kids are in flipped classrooms where they have to watch videos. There is a significant portion of our population that does not have internet access at home. And when we send out surveys, they say, oh, sure, I have internet access on my phone. Right? That's not an acceptable way to write an essay. As much texting as you can do, it doesn't help in the long-term learning process. And so in order to help close that gap, I applied for a grant. The Rochester Public Library offers a similar program where people that are job seeking can check out Wi-Fi hotspots for a certain amount of time and use them to update their resumes and apply for jobs. And I thought that'd be a perfect thing for our students. And so working with the counselors at first at JM, so Lori Kastman and everyone in the Success Center there, and all the counselors actually have been extremely helpful. Joe Hunter and the paras at the library there have taken the hotspots and labeled them and given instructions. They've so much help from everyone. It's really a team effort. And the plan is, of course, to expand it beyond JM to Century and Mayo as the need becomes more clear, and we can give results on homework completion and hopefully increasing grades over the course of the program for the students that check them out. So thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
And the next one is Hands-On Equations, Brianne Morris and Lene Rash.
Hello, I am an EL teacher at Bamber Valley Elementary, and I love my job. In my second life, I'd go back and be a math teacher, so I love that I get to do both of them. I won't talk your ear off about it, but it's a really cool program that teaches linear algebraic equations to fifth graders, which is generally a pretty abstract concept and really hard for them to grasp. It teaches them in a very concrete manner. They get a balance, and they get pawns, which represent the variables, and they use number cubes, and they're actually building these equations and removing pawns and number cubes from both sides, so they really get a concrete understanding of what algebra is. So I really am excited about the opportunity. And I've done it with kids before, and they think it's a game, and they love it. And anytime we can get kids to love math, I think that's a win. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Then we have Amber Henry and Jessica Marquardt from Gage, and guests.
Hello, I brought a few of my students who are benefiting from this grant already. So our project is Codable for Gage Elementary, and it will benefit all classrooms, all students at Gage. What Codable is an extensive computer science program through an application and also through a website that focuses on coding. We have the long-term results of a consistent K-5 coding curriculum at school that connects across all grades. Also, the long-term result of building real-world connections in the field of computer science and having students and teachers engage in learning side-by-side in content that is challenging but enjoyable, which is why I brought two of my students who have daily, since we lost access to full access Codable, have asked when we were getting it back.
I enjoy coding because it challenges me to find new ways to solve problems.
I like coding because it helps me solve puzzles and focus.
So one essential skill that coding works on is problem solving. And Codable presents a unique opportunity to have students problem solve through computer science. But then also the curriculum that comes with Codable connects to all subjects. It could be in PE, it could be in music, it could be in any classroom. As a full-service community school, we have a practice and program alignment model that looks like this. I'm not sure if it ended up in the board docs or not. I can pull it up. Yes. So we have our full-service community school model that we follow. And so we have the indicator of the curriculum, which is our students meeting or exceeding their NWA and MCA test growth. Our strategy is student-centered learning, and the practice now through this grant is Codable. So we have 3 performance measures. First, the number of classrooms utilizing Codable. Second, the percentage of Gage students completing the modules. And then finally, the percentage or number of students showing an increased ability to break problems into smaller steps and explain their thinking. Thank you.
Very good job. And then our last one goes to Marcia Hartman as the project director at Hawthorne Education Center for expanded nonfiction reading materials for ESL classes. And is Marcia able to join us? No, but Ginny has a summary for this.
Yes, I do have this one. So Hawthorne Education Center will buy fresh nonfiction reading material. They will add roughly 125 books to their classrooms, which will allow students to be engaged in modern literature and political discourse. And they address the need, especially with a lot of minority students, and so this will be a great addition for them.
So I don't know about all of you, but I get awfully excited about all the fun things that are going on in our schools and the innovative ways that we're finding to raise our educational standards for our students. So a round of applause for all the great grant presentations. Any questions?
I have a question. If anybody would care to donate, how would they write a check and where should it go?
I would recommend checking out our website at rpsf.org.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. 3.04, School Board Committee Assignments Update. Any board member have anything to report? Mr. Schlusner.
This last weekend, it's not a committee assignment, but I did have the opportunity to go to an MSBA class up in St. Cloud, and it's always a great opportunity to get the chance to talk to other school board members from other school districts and how they are doing. It's good to see that Rochester really does do pretty well when you look at common problems across various districts across the state.
Okay, thank you. Consent agenda. Does anybody have any items to be pulled for separate consideration from this agenda?
Approval. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the consent agenda. On favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Just a second. 4.03.
Oh,
That's not that shouldn't be on there. It's a separate agenda item. So need to revote.
I think it's just in our notes.
Need to revote. Just want to bring to your attention, board members, 4.03, approval of boundary adjustments.
It's not. It's changed to articulating.
Okay. All right.
So that was the.
It's the purchase the front loader.
Okay. Thank you. Just reading my sheet. That's all.
Oh, you read it right. I didn't, but
Okay.
we're good.
All right.
Okay. 5.01, project search. This is an information item. Mr. Munoz.
Yes, I've been looking forward to this for several months. I think I'm going to have Carl come up and everybody else work their way up. But this is probably, it's no problem. It's my favorite partnership that we have in the district. It's amazing opportunities that our students have in a partnership with Mayo Clinic and many others. But I'm always amazed by I get an opportunity to meet these kids really right before school starts. This is when their match day is. We get to see them tonight. And then I also have the opportunity to see them when they graduate. And they're totally different students. They really grow, a lot of confidence, and it's just amazing the changes I see in these students, what I'm actually going to see tonight, I'm sure, and then I will see again at graduation. So I'll turn it over to you to Carl.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm really excited to be here, and we're very proud of this program. This is the third class that's come through, and it's the largest class that's come through. I need to stick to the script, though, because the last couple of years I presented, I take things they're going to talk about. So I'm not going to do that tonight. I do want to recognize a few people who are here, though. Maybe if you could just wave. Parents of the interns. This is a huge commitment, a lot of time and stress with this program. It's a big change, and as the interns grow, and they're in that huge campus of Mayo Clinic, being very independent. How about Department managers and supervisors, if you just wave your hands. We got a couple of those folks here too. These folks pour their heart and souls into these interns, and it's just amazing to see what they do. It's really cool to be a part of this. I don't know how else to say it. And then just a few people, other people who are here. Nancy Joyce, I think she's given me the time thing, like rap. Nancy Joyce is the instructor from Rochester Public Schools. Maren and Chris are our skills trainers. It's a title we don't use in the public schools very often. Guy Finney from Mayo Clinic, and Dawn Kirchner. Anybody else from the leadership team here? Leanne from Olmsted County. So this is a real great partnership. And without further ado, I'll turn it over to the Project Search interns.
Project Search is an employer-driven model that was developed at Cincinnati's Children's Hospital in 1996. It started as a single-site program in the United States and is now in over 500 different locations, 45 different states, and in 9 countries. Project Search Mayo Clinic started in 2015 and is currently now in its 3rd year. It is one of 8 sites in Minnesota. Project Search is a program for students 18 to 21 years old who qualify for support services in the Rochester Public Schools. It is a partnership between the Mayo Clinic and the Rochester Public School District, where students can participate in 3 10-week unpaid internship rotations in different Mayo Clinic departments. The goal of Project Search is to gain work experience and to learn skills to be competitively employed.
The first 4 weeks of Project Search were orientation. We spent time in the classroom learning the expectations of Project Search, the history of Mayo Clinic, proper dress and decorum, and learning about specialized training such as HIPAA and ICAUC. We interviewed and toured the first internship rotations and built team chemistry. We spent time getting to know the downtown campus by going on scavenger hunts in pairs and groups. This helped us learn landmarks across the campus, including the subway. It was crucial as 7 of the Project Search internships are across the downtown campus in 11 buildings covering over a 6-block radius. We had the opportunity to have speakers from various roles at Mayo Clinic give perspective on numerous topics. Orientation was fast and set a positive foundation to start our internships.
Typical day. From 7:30 a.m. to 3 p.m., we're at the Mayo Clinic. In April of last year, Project Search moved into its own classroom on the 6th floor in Osmond East. At 7:30 a.m., we are in a classroom where we work on employability skills, interview skills, career portfolio and resumes, communication skills, professional emails. From 8:30 a.m. to 9 a.m., travel to sites. Some interns use the Mayo Clinic shuttle to the northwest sites like Superior Drive, the Linen Depot, and the print shop. The majority of our day is spent in the actual internships from 9 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. We get a 30-minute lunch in our departments with our teams, either in the break room or cafeteria. At 2:30 p.m., we are back in the classroom, journal, problem solve, and at 3 we are dismissed. After each 10-week rotation, there is a transition week. During the transition week, we update our resumes, interview for our next rotation, and present at our employment plan meeting, attended by our parents and other team members. We also celebrate our accomplishments. We were able to tour the Caroline Bells, but the big difference is this year's we played bells.
My name is Shelby Jensen. My first internship was in the Charter House in Environmental Services and housekeeping. My main job was keeping the common areas and the entryways of the first floor clean. I also cleaned the Higgins Library, 5th floor game room, common areas on the assisted living center floors, and the fitness center. My favorite tasks were polishing elevators and cleaning 3rd and 4th floors in the ALCs. Project Search has helped me learn new vocabulary, the correct cleaning procedures, and how to find my way around the Mayo Clinic campus. My second internship is in pediatrics. My 3rd rotation will be in food services.
Hi, my name is Emily Hagstrom, and my first rotation was in pediatrics. Pediatrics primarily serves infants, toddlers, and adolescents.
It is located on the 16th floor of the mail building. My tasks there included mail distribution and collection, and then another one of my tasks included lobby walkthrough, which includes straightening up magazines, picking up trash, and using the carpet sweeper to tidy up the floor area. I also wiped down the patient education chairs and computers. Another one of my tasks there included restocking patient rooms with medicine supplies such as Band-Aids, ear carets, and tongue depressors. What I like most about Project Search is the hands-on learning and learning to set and accomplish goals. Project Search has made me more responsible, and I'm becoming more self-sufficient in my daily and professional life. My current internship is now in food service, and my third one will be in the charter house.
My name is Miracle King. My first internship was in food service, and it is located in the Eisenberg Methodist Hospital. My main task is to prepare and serve healthy food to the patient, visitor, and employees. I work in the ingredient room preparing bacon, sorting grapes, and also in the cold prep area, packaging dessert and fruits. I also work in the patient and visitor cafe, serving food, facing coolers, and cleaning the dining room after lunch. Since being part of CERT, I am more open-minded, and I am learning how to stay focused and be a better listener. My second internship in environmental services and housekeeping at Charter House. My third rotation is in linen services.
My name is Jasmine Butzer. My first internship was in Central Services at St. Mary's Hospital. Central Services prepares and provides sterile equipment to be used for patient care. When I first started, I assembled respiratory equipment, which then went disposable. At that point, my task list changed. I filled bath blanket carts, dried and put away plastics and utensils, and put instruments in peel packs for sterilization. Since starting Project Search, I've been working to be more independent and mature. I'm improving every day. My second internship is in comparative medicine, and my third rotation is in pediatrics.
Hi, my name is Georgina Del Del. My first rotation was comparative medicine. Comparative medicine is supporting investigators in animal research. Comparative medicine is located in the Guggenheim and Sibyl buildings. My main task includes filling water bottles, restocking investigator carts, and restocking battery rooms. I also assist with the autoclave and cage wash. What I like most about Project Search is that I have a great group of people who support each other every day. Project Search have changed me. I want to work more now than ever before. I have learned the importance of being on time every day. I'm in my current rotation, environmental services. My third rotation will be in central services at Methodist Hospital.
All right, my name is Andrew Parsons, and my first internship was at Environmental Services. Environmental Services is custodial and janitorial work, which is located in the Dan Abraham Healthy Living Center and the Mayo, Gardner, and Plummer buildings. My tasks include cleaning drinking fountains, phones, brass, silver. And in previous years, interns talk about lots of glass. Well, this year, we clean not just lots, but a mega ton of glass. A new task added this year is operating the chariot. Not like the chariot in Hercules, but a riding vacuum. How I changed since coming to Project Search is I used to make excuses and interrupt conversations. But I learned very quickly, for a day in fact, not to make excuses, and to talk at appropriate times. I'm currently at Linen Services, and my third rotation is at Comparative Medicine.
My name is Tanner Peterson, and my first internship was at Linen Services. At Linen Services, we filled linen carts for use on the downtown campuses. Linen Services was located at St. Mary's Hospital until November, and then moved out to the 3939 building on Valley High Drive, in a move that was 3 years in the making. What I like about Project Search is that I get opportunities to gain skills to get competitive employment and hopefully get a foot in the door at Mayo Clinic. Since being in Project Search, I feel that I am learning how to be a team player. I am currently in my second internship at Media Support Services, and my third rotation will be at DLMP.
Hi, my name is Kyle Hoffman, and my first internship was in Media Support Services at Osmond East 5, 5th floor at the print shop on Technology Drive. Media Support Services is recording of data and assembly of patient education materials. At Osmond 5, the interns use Excel and spreadsheets. We take inventory of office supplies, work on discrepancy emails, a way of tracking print job problems and response times, forms research, using MC numbers, and scanning obsolete forms and materials for archiving. At the print shop, I assemble DVDs, comb binding, and stitching, which is a fancy word for stapling. I surprised my supervisors numerous times by completing projects before their deadlines, in a couple of cases, weeks before they needed. Since being a Project Search, I am more confident asking questions and having more conversations with my coworkers. I'm currently in my second rotation in Central Services at Eisenberg, and will be back at Media Support Services for my third internship.
My name is Marisol Sprout, and my first internship was at Central Services, located at the Eisenberg Methodist campus. Central Services is a sterilization of instruments used in patient care. My main job was to deliver clean plastics from the 10th floor to the 3rd floor at the hospital. Some of the plastics were wash basins, emesis basins, and bedpans. I also wrapped light handles and injection trays, which are used in surgical rooms. What I like most about Project Search is going to my internship site. I am now at DLMP, and my third rotation will be in environmental services.
Hello, my name is Evan Bennett, and my first internship was in the Department of Laboratory Medicine and Pathology, located at the Superior Drive Support Center. DLMP processes over 40,000 specimens per day from all over the world. My main tasks were pucking, water spidering, racking, and sorting. I bet you're wondering what those are. Pucking is putting lab specimens on the conveyor belt for processing. Water spidering is picking up different lab specimens from different lab stations. Racking is manually putting the lab specimens into the system. And sorting is manually sorting the lab specimens that cannot go through robotic automation. My second internship rotation is Health Sciences in the Biobusiness Center. Health Sciences is a returning partner to Project Search. I am currently entering patient survey information into a data bank for a breast and ovarian cancer study. I am looking forward to returning to Health Sciences for my third rotation, where I will be scanning materials for the colorectal program. Project Search has helped me gain confidence and increased my ability to accept feedback as a learning experience.
The goal of Project Search is an integrated competitive employment. According to National Project Search standards, competitive employment is defined as at least 16 hours per week, minimum wage or above, non-seasonal, and in an integrated setting, working among coworkers with and without disabilities. At the national level, 75% of interns completing Project Search gain competitive employment. Mayo Clinic's Project Search, 100% for both 2016 and 2017. In fact, the average wages and hours are both significantly higher than the national average. Mayo Clinic Project Search was proud to receive the 100% Employment Award for the 2015 and 2016 at the national conference last summer in Pennsylvania. We are looking forward to receiving the same award for 2016 and 2017 at this year's conference in Savannah, Georgia.
Project Search carries on its tradition set by previous years. For our 2015-2016 year search, success everyone achieves through confidence, respect, confidence, and honesty. Be bold from last year, building excellence through believing in opportunities of learning with determination. To our current year, 2017-2018, building success together. We have learned from the very beginning that the needs of the patient come first. We have also learned that working together helps us meet those expectations. In that spirit, we were fortunate to share our story at the Region 10 workshop, be an active part of the 2018-2019 Information Night, and we recently hosted Senator Senjum and Senator Nelson. At the start of the year, we gave each department their own Building Success Together keepsake. We would like to present one to the school board and Superintendent Munoz in appreciation of your support and commitment to Project Search and our individual journeys. Thank you.
Yes, I had the opportunity to attend your last graduation. I remember many of you then. It's exciting to see the progress you've made. The thing that continues to stand out, and I agree with the superintendent, what a blessing. And aside from the rail graduation, I think this is one of my favorites as well. But that being said, I want to encourage you to continue to reflect the pride, the dignity, and the self-worth and value that you have. It means a lot to others, and I think you may not understand fully the impact that you're able to have. I also wanted to thank the collaboration efforts of the clinic, the county, and of course the district.
Yeah, you guys were awesome. I know you're a little nervous. You guys knocked it out of the park, which I knew you would, okay? You're different than when I met you this summer. You've grown a lot, and I'm looking forward to seeing you at graduation time. I also want to thank all of the staff that have part of this program and all of the people that provide this opportunities for our kids. This is really what it's all about, giving kids real-life experiences so they can be successful forever. Earlier, we were talking about we need to be more positive in this is something positive. This should be on the front page of the Post Bulletin tomorrow morning. This should be the highlight of KTCC tonight on the news because this is an awesome, positive program. So thank you.
Has just been called out by the superintendent, and I know you have all done, Andrew, I bet you know this, all of you have done a mega ton of work, right? Thank you. 5.02 graduation rates. This is an information item. Mr. Munoz.
Yes, at this time I'm going to have Brandon come up, and he's going to share with you our 2017 graduation data.
Good evening. If it's okay with you, I'm going to stand because I've been sitting all day, so I could use the opportunity to stand up. I believe, and Wendy might be able to check this for me, this is the second year in a row that I've had the privilege of being here on the night that we recognize Project Search, and the second year in a row that I've had the unfortunate opportunity to follow them in my presentation. So maybe I'll have to contact the state to see if they can release graduation rates a little earlier so I can get on the February agenda. As you know, recently the graduation rates for the class of 2017 were released publicly, and we did put out a press release with those rates, but wanted to take the opportunity to present to you some of that information, some of that data in a little bit greater detail. Before I get into the data, I do want to just point out a couple of changes. The state did update the way that they calculate graduation rates this year. The first has to do with race and ethnicity. So they went from 5 ethnicity groups up to 7, and you see I have them listed there. The Native Hawaiian or Pacific Islander was one that was added, and then also 2 or more races, so those are students who identify with more than one race or ethnicity. I will point out that not all of those are reported publicly. That depends upon the number of students within that category. They will not report graduation rates for student groups that fall below a particular threshold. And then also, when it comes to our students who are identified as EL, our special ed students or our students who qualify for free and reduced price lunch, previously that students that were included in that group based upon their identification in 9th grade. And now that's changed where if a student spends any time during their high school career in any one of those groups, they'll be reported along with that group. So that could be a student who did not qualify for free or reduced price lunch in 9th grade but did in 10th grade. Previously they wouldn't have been included in those calculations, and now they will be. The state did go back, I believe, 6 years. I have 5-year trends tonight to show you, but they went back 6 years and recalculated all of our graduation rates back to 2012 so that we can compare from year to year. Otherwise, it would not have been an equal comparison. So the first slide I have here for you is the 5-year graduation rate trend, and you'll see the district trend as well as the state trend. So you'll see when we look at over the 5-year trend from 2013 to 2017, almost a 2% increase for all students, a little bit of an up and down there. And then there was a request from a member of the board to have student count, and so you'll see that underneath the graduation year there. So pretty consistent, up 4 students from 2013 to 2017 in the number of students that graduated in 4 years. I'm happy to take questions if there are any, otherwise I'll keep going. The next slide shows our graduation rates by demographic. Again, district rates are indicated in green and the state rate is in red. So one of the things that I know is reported in our press release and by the local media was that Rochester exceeded the state graduation rates in every single student category. So you can see that there. I wanted to highlight the changes that we've seen in our 4-year graduation rates from 2013 to 2017, and I wanted to share that by demographic and by student group. So you can see here we saw gains in graduation rates amongst our Asian students, Hispanic, and our Black students, and most notably double-digit increases in graduation rates achieved by our Hispanic and our Black students. And then this is the same data, but by those program groups. So again, a double-digit increase in graduation rates amongst our EL students, and increases by both special ed students and students who qualify for free and reduced price lunch. And the other piece that we talk a lot about is closing the achievement gap and looking at how are our students in identified demographic groups achieving as compared to students not in those identified groups. So what you'll see here, our Asian students in 2013, and we have again our student counts. This indicates the gap. So the gap of graduation rate between our Asian students and our white students in 2013, and you can see how that gap closed then in 2017. As well with our Hispanic students, so over a 30% difference in 2013, and that dropped to just about a 10% difference in graduation rate in 2017. Similar close of that gap amongst our black students. We did see the gap widen a little bit amongst our students who identify with 2 or more race or ethnicities, but I'll point out the student count there as well is relatively low, so it's going to have a greater impact when you have a lower student count. And then this is the achievement gap 2013 to 2017 amongst our student program groups. So again, you can see that gap closing amongst our EL students from 2013 to 2017, as well as special ed and students with who qualify for free or reduced price lunch. And the last slide I have for you is graduation rate percentage broken down by high school site. So we have our 3 comprehensive high schools and then our alternative learning center. So when we look at that 5-year trend graduation rate, it's a pretty positive picture in the gains that we've made, especially with those students who I think it's safe to say weren't graduating at the rate that we'd like them to back in 2013. We've made significant gains over the last 5 years, and we're definitely closing that achievement gap. Any questions?
Not really a question, but more of a request. I think it'd be interesting to see these statistics matched with the trends in standardized test scores. To be a true reflection of where the achievement gap is going. It's great that we are graduating more students, but we want to make sure that we're graduating them with, of course, the quality education that we know we provide.
Absolutely.
But we want to see a positive trend in that space as well.
Yep.
That'd be a really good combined set of statistics to see.
I'd be happy to put those 2 together. We have both of those. I can put those together and can send them to you.
I would just caution us, though, especially when you're looking at high school. I think a couple years ago we started seeing a trend of kids opting out of taking the state test because when they changed it, they didn't have to take it and pass it to graduate. We started seeing, and just not in Rochester, but across the state and across the country, that kids were opting out. And the very first year that we saw that, we kind of panicked and even had the principal sit down with each student and determine why is that. And a lot of these kids were AP kids and kids that do extremely well, and they said, miss my AP class, which I need to do really well on because I can get college credit for it, or take a test that really doesn't have anything to do with me. So I'd caution us to make that comparison because it's not going to be apples to apples. Yeah.
So which were the 2 groups that were added?
So it was the Pacific Islander, Hawaiian, and then 2 or more races.
Okay, that's how I remembered you saying that. I just wanted to make sure that I had heard that correctly. So when you were comparing the change between 2013 and 2017 with students who had 2 or more ethnicities or races, was that information that the district had already been keeping, or how did you come up with that?
That's all from the Minnesota Department of Education.
Okay.
Yep.
I was just wondering because that was a new.
That's a
piece of it.
That's a new designation.
Yep.
Correct. Yeah. That's not a. And what the state is trying to do is they're trying to align better with the federal ethnicity designations.
Okay.
Brandon, can you speak to, these are, I'm assuming, 4-year graduation rates?
Correct.
And then will you be back to show us some 5- and 6-year graduation rates?
I'd be happy to pull those. In fact, I think they're now going up to 7-year, which in talking with some other folks who are in my position in other districts, they find the 7-year graduation rate to be of particular interest with EL students and special ed students.
Thank you.
Yep, so I'd be happy to look at those as well.
Mr. Farwell.
Thank you, Brandon. I don't know if you're directly responsible for all this information, but that being
just
said,
the presentation, not the information.
That being said, it is great to see the success which is occurring. I know there's a wonderful article in the Post Bulletin the other day regarding that sometimes data is used as a sledgehammer to try to find fault or to point fingers, and I'm glad we're able to use it and present it this evening as an opportunity to show growth. And yet in saying that, I still have, as I'm sure, a shared concern with fellow board members and also the superintendent with the hundreds of children who may not be graduating on time, either using the state benchmark of 4 years or extending it out to 7. And the thing that is exciting to me is that the district is utilizing professional development, historical trauma, ACEs, as a means to better understand the why behind that. And I just wanted to use this as an opportunity to encourage our forward march toward continuing to see that all kids, children, graduate and that they are receiving the best possible services they can. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brandon.
You bet.
7.01, sorry. We omitted an announcement we wanted to make earlier. Mr. Munoz.
Yes, I apologize. This is, normally I like to recognize those who retire after we approve the consent, so I got a little distracted and didn't do that. So I'm going to do that now. We have one administrative retirement. Colleen Thompson is the elementary assistant principal at Gage Elementary. She's served with the district for 16 years. Teacher retirements, we have Mary Lou Boyd, who's been an adaptive physical education teacher at Sunset Terrace, and she has served the district for 19 years. Aletha Broadwater is a counselor at Sunset Terrace Elementary. Retirement, has put in 27 years for the district. Shelley DeYoung, family and consumer science teacher at Rochester Alternative Learning Center, 27 years. Steve Felton, special education instructional coach at Gage Elementary, and also serves some at the district level in special ed. 40 years of service to the district. And Rochelle Hagan, licensed school nurse at Kellogg Middle School, 5 years. And then Terry Dutch Heidescheit, physical education teacher at Gibbs Elementary, 31 years. And Lynn Nelson, physical education teacher at Longfellow Elementary, 22 years. And then Maria Alingo, I think it is, special education paraprofessional at Mighty Oaks, has been with the district for 6 years. So we want to thank all of them for their service to our district.
Thank you, Mr. Munoz. 7.01, approval of boundary adjustments effective for the 2018-2019 school year. This is listed as an action item. Mr. Carlson. This is listed as an action item. There are 3 different options here. And I'm not sure if this is exactly following order, but I think it might be more efficacious if we had a discussion before we moved to vote on these. And I'll begin the discussion. As you know, the district had the opportunity to move some of our students from more crowded elementary schools to less crowded schools. We had classrooms open up at Hoover, and at that time, when we became aware of this, the district looked district-wide at where we might have some spaces to alleviate some of the congestion at some of our schools that are overcrowded. What we're discovering as a district is that we are continuing to gain students, which is a great problem to have, but we don't have adequate room for all of them, which is not such a great problem. We need to expand our classroom space. We are talking about building. We're looking at areas where we might build. In the meantime, the district came up with a short-term, sort of minor adjustment of some boundary areas. That was option 1. They held a meeting for the community who gave their feedback. Most parents who have contacted the board and who showed up at the meeting said they don't want their children moved from their home school. I absolutely understand that as a parent. We love our neighborhood schools. Our kids love their teachers. They want to stay put, and I get that. The district came up with a second option that was a modification of option 1. Parents still don't want their children moved from their home schools. Some of us on the school board went to visit the 4 schools that were slated to have students moved out. And what we discovered at those schools were that 2 of them, when we met with the staff, they looked at us, some of them teary-eyed, and they said, we can't do this anymore. We have too many kids in this building. We love them. We love their families. We don't want them to leave. But we have to get some kids moved out. They will be going to another great school, but it is not the best for their learning or our teaching to be this overcrowded. 2 schools in particular that were saying this were Elton Hills Elementary and Gibbs Elementary. Elton Hills is at 150% occupancy. The stories that we heard from the staff there, 100% of them who spoke with us said they don't have room to feed them lunch. They don't have classroom space. If there's a student in a wheelchair, for instance, they simply don't have adequate space to be able to move around the room, to be able to interact with all the kids. If a child needs a place to decompress, there is no place. The halls are crowded, the classrooms are crowded, the gym is crowded, the lunchroom, which I think there is the gym, is overused. And they said, and they've been saying this for 3 years now, we have too many students. Gibbs is not as crowded as Elton Hills, but that's part of the community that continues to grow, and families continue moving in Northwest, continue sending their kids to that school, and they're concerned that now they're overcrowded and that in another year they're going to be bursting at the seams. So to the board, and I know this complicates things, I would really like to look at a third option, which would be moving students from Elton Hills and from Gibbs and leaving the other 2 schools, which when we met with them, they said our class sizes are too big, but we're doing fine, leaving those 2 schools status quo for the time being. Mr. Barlow.
Thank you, Chair Marvin, and I appreciate the fact that you and Director Workman were able to go out to these 4 schools and to hear directly from teachers and staff, and how important that voice is in helping us form and make a better decision. So as I understand what's before us, there are currently 3 options, and you're suggesting that there be a 4th one. And to again just simply reaffirm what I understood, the staff and the numbers would support this at both Gibbs and Elton Hills are fully supportive of instituting a change for academic school year 18-19. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And then further, the staff at Jefferson and Bamber are completely satisfied that they can continue to provide high-quality services for their current student population and projected population for academic school year 18-19.
Full disclosure, both Bamber Valley and Jefferson had, there were some there that said that they're too crowded. But the majority of the folks that we listen to and the emails we've been getting have said, you know what, we're going to be okay for another few years.
So to just get me to this point of, and it's not been presented in the form of a motion or anything, but you're just putting into play the discussion of perhaps an option 4 that would have Gibbs and Elton Hills boundaries adjusted, and Jefferson and Bamber, those boundaries remaining the same.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Workman.
Yeah, I'd like to really point out some of the changes that I'm seeing that I don't think are really good for kids when we're talking about changing some of these boundaries. For example, in some of the classes, once the boundary has changed, I'll use Bamber Valley since it's right at the top. There are currently 123 students in third grade, and with the boundary changes, there would be 114. And we say, wow, isn't that wonderful? And maybe it is, except for the fact that we then move from 5 sections to 4 sections. So the average third grade class at Bamber Valley right now, well, there are 3 with 25 and 2 with 24. Those numbers would change from 2 with 29 to 2 with 28. And I've got a whole list of these. I didn't have time to go through everything today, but I did notice that as sort of a peculiar kind of thing. And I understand that we have to really balance the numbers of students that we have with the sections. But to me, when you're talking about moving some students, that this really impacts the classroom. And one of the things I think that Jean and I really heard from teachers were even a difference of 2 or 3 or 4 students can make, depending on who the students are, it can make a big difference moving in either direction. In as much as I think we've kind of really tried to keep our sections K through 3 on the lower end, some of the third grade classes would increase. Now, granted, they're still within the target numbers that the district had set, but at the same time, I think we need to be actually looking at how many kids we would actually end up with in a particular classroom. I think that's important to consider. The other thing that I thought was very peculiar, or maybe not, I just thought it was that all of the classes with the numbers they have now, the numbers they would have next year, and the numbers of the change would all be within those target numbers. Elton Hills is overcrowded, yet all the classrooms meet the target number that's set by the district, which led me to think, so what's the problem at Elton Hills? Why is this overcrowding if they're meeting the target? And so my question is, how many classrooms do we have at Elton Hills that are being used for classroom instruction, which previously were dedicated to some other activity? For example, was it a playroom that's now converted into a classroom? I heard from one of the schools that they are trying to have 2 special education classes in the same room, and there's nowhere for students to decompress, or whatever the word was that you used a while ago. So it's not just the numbers of students in the building that is the issue, although it's certainly an issue for cafeteria time. Kids come to school at 9:15 and their first lunch is at 10 minutes to 11. Hope they ate early. It's not just those numbers in terms of the numbers of kids per the number of square feet, but the fact that the number of kids in the building means that they can't ever have assemblies with the entire student body. They have to split. And that does something for a school as well. So it looks to me like the problem at Elton Hills is that we have simply too many classrooms. And I don't have a solution for that. I don't know how many classrooms were at Elton Hills that were not converted from something else any number of years ago, and how that's changed. So saying all that, I think it should be really clear to the public, I hope it's really clear to the public, that we do need more classroom and more building space, because we simply have too many classrooms in a building. I don't know how much a new building would actually change some of these numbers, but I think it would be something worth considering.
Yeah, just a couple comments. I don't think we ever said the intent of boundary adjustments was to reduce class sizes.
No, you didn't, but that's the effect.
So that was not the intention. In order to do that, we'd have to go in a neighborhood. House A, you got a second and third grader? Right, we're moving you. You're a next door neighbor. You don't have the grades we need, so you can stay. So it was strictly looking at number of kids, just like we shared, and square footage and all of that. But you're right, when you look at the information we sent you, pre-boundary adjustments, post-boundary adjustments, all classrooms stay below board targets. So that was never our intention. The intention was to try to reduce number of kids in the building. I would, at this time, also like to offer maybe an option 5. I guess we're up to option 5. And that would be that, based on what we heard, for those who attended and the information we've been getting electronically, we heard 4 things. Give us more time. Look at the exception to attendance. Look at the open enrollment. And wait until the new school is built. Well, in my opinion, wait until the new school build is not an option, because probably the earliest we'd have a building would be the 2021-22 school year. I don't think we can wait that many years before we do something, especially in the Gibbs area. They have a new 60-plus unit apartment right across the street that's going to be opening up, and was informed recently there's some additional housing that's going to be up in near future. So I don't think that's an option. Our recommendation, or option 5, would be to, at this time, make no boundary changes for the 18-19 year. We would enforce policy 5.03.3, which is the exception to attendance, and policy 509, which is open enrollment. So basically what we're saying is that we would, everybody that's on exception to attendance and open enrollment, you would have to reapply. And we would be extremely strict on who got in. And I don't know if we literally would have to go knock on the door and make sure there's actually a daycare being provided there. Maybe that's what we have to do. But, we, on the form, it's signed off by the parent and signed off by the person providing the daycare. We just assume that they're being honest with us, but we could tighten that up. So that could impact the schools that we're talking about. And then we would propose that early fall, we would bring a boundary adjustment to you to be approved before November 15th, because November 15th is when we have our kindergarten, I call it roundup, I think we call it something different here, kickoff. So I think at that time parents would want to know where their kindergartner is going to go. But so we would do that for changes for the 2019-20 school year. But I will tell you that there will be more families impacted with that boundary proposal, because we were looking at next year being a Part A, and then Part B we would do some more. So we would bring additional maybe boundary suggestions. And also the message isn't going to change. You're going to hear the same concerns and issues that we heard already, that you're going to hear that, but probably more of it. But that would be our recommendation, that we would try to honor at least 3 of the 4 things that we heard, which would give them time. So we would not do anything until the 19-20 school year. We would look at exception to attendance and open enrollment and try to really tighten that up. And then, like I said, I don't think we can wait till the 21-22 school year to do something.
My intent on pointing out some of these things was just so that people are aware or know, parents especially, if you think, well, with this boundary change, my child's classroom might be smaller next year, which is not necessarily the case. So I think you can't assume that. And I understand that this was not done to impact class sizes, yet in some cases it very much impacts class sizes, whereas leaving at least some of these buildings where they are now would not make things any worse, whereas a boundary change actually could. Then my second question is, when you're looking at the kinds of numbers that of students that would be moved out of the building, for example, how many students would be leaving Gibbs under the option 1 proposal? Does anybody, do you have that number?
Well, it should be in the
Okay.
document under option 1.
Okay, I don't have that screen up.
Sit.
Okay, and so I guess what I kind of heard from some of the teachers was that, you know, if 50 or 60 kids leave our building, that's really not enough to substantially change how many kids you have at lunch at one time, whether or not you can have your entire school at an assembly. So I'm really leaning to not liking option one, and I think this is kind of maybe where you were, Mike, at least at one point. And then for option two, it helps with Elton Hills, but once again, we still have, you know, at least 16 classrooms, grades 1 through 5, next year, which is what we have now with, I don't know, it depends on how many kindergarten there's actually enrolled at Elton Hills to determine the number of kindergarten classrooms. So the number of classrooms and the number of students in the building, you know, unless the number of classrooms actually changes in the building, I don't see how moving a few kids out would really change the dynamic necessarily what's happening in the building. And I really like your suggestion to have maybe further conversation on this, because I'd like to hear more from more from the people who actually teach in those buildings as to, well, how many students would have to move? You know, yeah, I know everybody would love to have a class size of 15, and gosh, I'm all in on that if you can bring the dollars that would enable us to do that. So I very much appreciated the openness and the forthrightness of the staff and the principals at those buildings for when Jean and I came in and listened.
Ms. Becker.
I just have a couple questions. So if we're thinking about the idea of so rephrase. So my question is, so for the 2018-2019, you're proposing us look at those, the exception to attendance and open enrollment, and see if that would have an impact on some of the schools. And, okay, so I'm completely fine looking at that, and that may or may not make any difference. But then you're looking at more substantial changes that we would be voting on in November, correct? And at that point in time, might we have a better idea of where we would have the new school? And so at that point, then wouldn't we be able to make better choices of, you know, so then the kids wouldn't have to kind of make like a halfway step? Might it be better?
I think, I mean, it's not been decided, but I almost anticipate the new elementary is going to be in the Northwest. So, yes, you will impact the Gibbs neighborhood again. I mean, you would impact it again, but actually you're going to probably impact all the buildings a bit. I mean, a little, because you're going to have to adjust all of them to funnel in, unless you want to start an elementary that, you know, that's half full. I mean, but really we'd have to redistribute all of the kids. So I think once a new school is built, everybody's going to feel some changes. But you're right, that group could potentially change once and then have to change again once new school is built.
Deborah's next. I think, did you have a question? Oh, okay. I thought I saw you sitting there with your hand up the whole time.
It's half up.
It's half up, okay. Half a question.
She's thinking.
I apologize.
Have a question.
He's a traffic cop tonight.
Yeah.
I think as the board administration certainly know, and the public is perhaps beginning to see all the different pieces that come into play, and things that we can control and things that we can't. And so, you know, we talked a little bit last time about the changes in free and reduced price lunch, EL, special ed, ethnicity, and I think we really need to be aware of those things when we make changes as well, because we don't want to put any building out of proportion with the rest of our buildings. I think the other thing, obviously, we don't have a control over, to Ms. Workman's point, is we don't know what grades these kids are in. We do know what grades they are in, but they might not be in the right grades to be leaving the buildings to make them the best sense. So that's just another factor that kind of comes into this. What we really haven't talked about tonight either is the middle and high school impact, and I think that also has to come into this conversation again as things get rippled out. I think there's more saturation in the elementary schools, and that's where we tend to hear most of our comments from. I believe that everybody's got a story. We all have our story about our school experience, and whether that was we got to go to every neighborhood school that our parents did, or we had to move a number of times. I had to move in my 9th grade year, take the city bus, all the way across town to a new school for 1 year. Pros and cons. It was the one and only. I'm halfway through the story. It was the one and only time I got in a fist fight. Was in 9th grade with a girl from the other school. But pros and cons. I also made friends who, from that school, who became lifelong friends, and one of whom, board members and superintendent know, became the superintendent of Duluth Public Schools. So perhaps that impacted us so deeply that we had to intermingle with other kids that we ended up in education. I would like to see, as we consider this now or in the future, that we really work hard to reach all our parents as well. We know we have pockets of neighborhoods or maybe pockets of families who maybe aren't writing us emails or coming to make public comments, and whether that is pushing us into the community to be at the coffee shop or into the school and having those families in. I think we have some real opportunities to make deeper connections with our families there. And I think the other thing that I know for sure about our district is that we have really good schools, and I know that the thought of changing schools is really, can be really scary. But a lot of it comes back to communication. And the communication that happens in our houses when we talk to our kids about the possibility of them changing schools, the communication from our principals who are going to be, I don't want to say losing because they are all our kids, but losing students, and our principals who are going to be receiving students. I am honored to know many of our principals and know that they care so much about these students, and I know some of them would be thrilled to have new students and would welcome them so much with open arms and take care of them just as lovingly as the school that they're in. I think there's opportunity here not only to solve problems, but also to build relationships, which is what we talk about again and again. And so to Director Marvin's point about, and Superintendent's point about maybe making this a little bit slower process, maybe making it a little bit more deliberate. If we do that, I would like to suggest we take some real opportunities to connect with our families in a deeper way.
Mr. Schlusner.
I'd like to essentially say the same thing as Director Singer over there. I think there's a lot to think about here, and I don't think, quite frankly, I personally am ready to make a decision tonight. I think there is a lot more information to gather and options to consider. I do think at the end of the day we do need to relieve some of the capacity issues at especially Elton Hills and with some of the other things coming up. It's unfortunate when we have to move families, but at the end of the day, I personally look to the educators who know best on how to educate my daughters and the students of Rochester Public Schools. But again, I don't feel that we have the information tonight to choose any of these options. And I'd like to propose that we not table, because I don't table's not the proper word, but postpone the decision on this action item tonight.
Mr. Carlo.
Well, I'm coming at this now from the perspective of messaging. For the last month or two, we've convened community meetings. We have sent notified parents that how important and necessary this was, to now at this point say, well, and I'm okay with that, but at some point we have to deliver a believable message that will be supported by the community. I think what Director Seelinger has proposed is very important, perhaps building relationships, taking time to go to these potentially affected communities. I know the chair and I spoke after meeting with the superintendent on Monday of starting to have more active listening sessions with different learning community schools. Certainly this would fit right into that. It sounds like, are not really ready to vote on either of the options which were presented. And there have been a couple other suggestions offered, be it numbered option 5 or some other discussion points which were made. And so in terms of process, I don't know really how we get to where we need to be. If we don't do anything at this point, what are we going to direct the superintendent and staff to proceed to do?
Since this is an action item, we have to make a decision. And so to do what you suggested means we vote no, so that it's not enacted, and then we can move forward from there. And as long as we're talking about process, does the school district need to take an active vote as to whether or not we're even going to build a new building? Because we keep having this discussion at the table, and we're assuming we're going to do it, but I don't know in terms of process I know we have to take a vote at some point as to whether or not we want to have a building referendum for the public to vote on, but do we need to make a similar kind of decision by vote that we're going to go ahead and do this, or do we just continue as we have?
Well, the direction the board gave us at the study session
Right.
was to organize a task force to determine where we should build, what we should build, and then bring that back to the board. I think at that time you would make a formal yes or no, and then if you say yes, then we move down the angle of the referendum and start that process in place. We're just, based on the study session is the direction we're headed, that we didn't vote because you don't vote at study session, but the consensus was get a task force started and keep moving forward on that.
I'm a little bit concerned because if we do this referendum, what we've been talking about is November of 2019, which is in 20 months, and the recommendation from Springstead was that we really need to work on pulling a referendum together in a period of preferably 18 months, short end 12 months. So I would really like to, I don't know where the task force is at this point, but I would really like to see us try and accelerate some of this process so that if we plan to float a referendum to the public, that the people who are working on the referendum committees have time to really pull it together and do a good job. And that would include any from Springstead or any other organization in terms of, polling the public and doing some of those other kinds of things that they did for our operating referendum a couple of years ago.
And that's an important statement, and it's important as we look at the boundaries. However, at this point, what we need to focus on is this particular item. And I'm hearing that we maybe need to bring this to a vote, whether to vote for one of these options or to vote them all down. And before we do this, I'm not sure it's fair to put in last word, but when the staff at 2 of our elementary schools are saying, help us, we love our kids, we want to give them the best, and we can't do it under these situations. When Elton Hills at 150% has been saying that for 3 years, if we go back and say, well, we're going to wait another year, I can't support that. And Gibbs is not as crowded right now, but it's likely that over the summer they're going to gain more students, as they do every summer. They're going to be in the same situation. Jefferson told us we're fine. We have enough space. We have enough classrooms. We're fine. Bamber Valley, a little bit more mixed, but far more staff there said, you know what, we can do this. But when we have 2 schools, professionals at 2 schools are saying, right now, we need help, And the thing in the district right now, we have some space. It just seems to me wrong not to move the kids. Mom called me today, wonderful woman. She was very angry that we're going to move any kids. And then in the next breath, she said she came from a military family and she moved repeatedly when she was a kid. And she said, you know what? It takes you about a week and you adapt. Kids are resilient. They get used to change. And our staff is saying it's better for teaching and learning if we don't have this many kids in these two buildings. Ms. Becker.
Two thoughts. So if we would look at the two schools, so where are you thinking you would be moving them to?
Well, the Alton Hills kids would go to Hoover, and the Gibbs kids would go to Sunset Terrace. Hoover's got 5 classrooms that opened up because the pre-K moved out.
So is it a better option for parents to have, like a real, neighborhoods moving to the other school? So, because I know that parents have said, well, okay, I'm going to have, my child's going to go to this school, and then, the next neighborhood over, or whatever is, the next house is, they may go to the, to the regular school. So, can we be really, really diligent about how we're really structuring which groups of people, which groups of students are moving?
Well, I know Mr. Carlson took, some time to do that, to move neighborhoods, not just individual families, to move neighborhoods so the kids would move together. And I know this is a lousy thing to ask at this point, that we have another alternative, because it's more work for Mr. Carlson, although he's just
Well,
right there and
that
smiling.
suggestion has a group of kids. I don't support the rationale. They're already being bused, so let's just move them. I don't like the idea that they're crossing multiple elementaries to get to their new elementary just because they're already currently being bused. It doesn't make sense. And if you remember, we really weren't moving kids out of Bamber because they were crowded. We were trying to get more kids into Riverside that had room. And this was a group that was actually part of the discussion back in 2014. And the rationale was they pass 2 elementaries before they get to their elementary. So we said, we have space at Riverside. Why shouldn't they just go to Riverside? So it was not all the moves were to adjust. All the buildings were crowded. Really, and then some of the rationale behind the Jefferson, too, was we have open class space at Churchill Hoover. What neighborhood schools are right next to Churchill Hoover? One of them is Jefferson, so you move some Jefferson kids. So our rationale was move groups of kids that are closest to the new school, not let's bus, they're already bused, let's just bus them further. So that's how we went at this, is trying to target parts of the neighborhood that were closer to the school that we're sending them to. We can run the numbers of that group. I think the 2 sections that were recommended, I don't know how many kids will actually get out of that section, because there's a lot of EL newcomers that live in one of those apartment complexes there that are already going to Riverside so they're not even going to Alton Hills. But that was the rationale we used when we messed around with the boundaries, is let's find something that's closer. That's the group you move, not so much looking at kids that are already currently being bused and let's bus them further. So that's the thinking we did when we came up with our thinking process.
Mr. Barlow.
Chair Marvin, I think we're probably ready to vote on the motion, and then perhaps after that vote can then offer direction or suggestions to the superintendent unless he was able to write all the things down that we were suggesting. I think that would be the appropriate way to go, so that we're able to move the meeting forward.
So you're calling question?
Yeah, question.
Okay. At this point, then, we have three options. Option one, all three would be beginning the 2018-2019 school year. Option one, which includes moving, also involves moving students from the middle schools. Option two, which involves moving students from 4 elementary schools, although fewer students from 2 of them. And option 3, which includes no changes. So is your, Mr. Barlow will ask you this.
I would just add to option 1 is that's not, I think there were 6 8th graders that we would not impact. They would go to, well, in this case, I think it was John Marshall, all of them. They would go to John Marshall for high school. We would not impact this current 8th grade group of kids, which there were 6.
So practically speaking, middle schools and high schools are not part of this equation at
They
the
will,
moment.
moving forward, if I'm a 7th grader, then I would go to my
Okay.
new high school, but current 8th graders, which there were 6, would not go to their new high school.
At this point, then, if we vote, and we can vote separately on option 1, 2, and 3, if we vote to approve any of those, that's what we go with, and if we vote not to approve any of those, then we are asking the district to come up with option 4 and or 4 and 5 for our next meeting. Okay. Be it resolved, the school board, Independent School District 535 does hereby authorize option 1, beginning with the 2018-2019 school year.
For purpose of voting, I'll say,
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Motion does not pass. Be it resolved, the School District of Independent School District 535 does hereby authorize option 2, beginning with the 2018-2019 school year.
second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Be it resolved, the school, motion does not pass. Be it resolved that the School Board of Independent School District 535 does hereby authorize option 3, no changes, beginning with the 2018-2019 school year.
So move.
Second.
Been moved and seconded.
Just clarification before you all vote. If you vote that one down, that's what you're saying, based on the resolution, is you're making no changes for next year.
And we can't consider anything else that we have been discussing
Right.
tonight.
I just want to make it clear what you're voting on.
Okay, so
Okay.
if we vote no, then we will have no further discussion about this. Is that correct? I just want to make sure I know which way
Well,
the vote goes.
To me, it's
Or is
two
it the other way
things.
around?
If you vote option 3 down, we're still open for discussion. If you approve option 3, which you're saying in your vote is, we are not going to make any changes in boundaries next year.
So
If I may,
We've gotten into these tangles before.
Somebody clarify that one more time.
and Chair, is that the understanding of the individual board members?
What?
That basically option 3 would be for academic school year 18-19.
That there would be no
Right.
changes.
Not we're through having this conversation about boundary
No.
changes forever.
Right. So my understanding is if we vote that one down, then what that means is that we want to continue the discussion.
Does that mean then that we still have a problem, I still have a problem with Elton Hills being significantly overcrowded. So that means if we vote option 3 down, then we are saying Elton Hills remains as it is for the 2018-19 school year, yes or no? I just want to know what yes means and what no means, and I'm still not clear. So maybe somebody else who is clear can explain this to me.
If you vote yes, what it says in parentheses, no changes in boundaries for next year. So then we're done. If you vote that one down, that can also mean we're done, unless a new resolution comes forward. if it's voted down or no new resolution, we still, it's in board policy, we can tighten up exception to attendance, open enrollment, that's policy. We can just be really tough on how we enforce that. Not really excited about making house visits, but if we have to, we can do that. So that would have some adjustment. Now, these numbers doesn't mean all of these kids would not return, but Gibbs, taking out the current fifth grade, they would have 79 students that are on some type of exception to attendance, open enrollment, or some type of administrative placement. Elton Hills has 68 students that are on there for some type of an exception to attendance or open enrollment. So I want to be clear, I'm not saying that you can count on that many not. If you wanted that to happen, you would have to change the board's caps on class sizes, because we will fill, we just spent this morning working on next year's staffing, and we are using those caps as our determining how many sections we need in every school. So I'm saying is that we may be able to get some kids out through that process, but I don't want you to walk away thinking that all of those numbers would be out of there, because if I have a class size of 22, I would probably allow a true legit exception to attendance to that particular grade because they're not at cap. So I just want to make sure we're all clear on what we're doing here.
I'm still not clear. I'm sorry.
If we vote to approve the third option, that means that next year everything stays status quo with a possible exception of having kids who are an exception to attendance being pulled out.
That's voting yes.
Yes. If we voted down, that means we could still have kids who are an exception to attendance, ask for them to be pulled out, but we could also go back and ask for more students to be removed from, or to be moved from one or more of the schools.
And I would suggest, if that's what you choose to do, I think it was brought up at the meeting that maybe we would have a guiding change document so we could have a little understanding from the board on what outcomes they want us to get. So if you truly want us to get reduced class size, then we'll bring back a proposal. Not sure how we'd pay for it, but we would bring back a proposal to reduce class size, because that'll have an impact across the district, not just the two buildings that you're talking about. But we would need some type of guidance from the board on the outcomes. What can we not do to get to those outcomes?
Mr. Barlow.
So the open enrollment and the exception to attendance were not, prior to this evening, part of the option 3 package, if you will. So having said that, we can still move to vote on it and then direct the superintendent to pursue the open enrollment and exception to attendance issues. We don't necessarily have to tie them together. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah, because it's your board policy. We just have not been really strict on, especially the daycare one exception, because I'm not real excited by knocking on the door after school and making sure little Johnny's getting daycare provided there or not. But we can do that. So that's no matter what you do, that's open. I mean, we can do that because it's board policy.
Okay.
Ms. Seelinger.
So I believe that option 3, that I am voting down option 3, because I believe we need to look at Elton Hills and Gibbs separately, and these have all been packaged together. So that is what I believe to be what would be the right thing for me to do, and then feeling as if that was the board's will to look at those two situations separately.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. It's been discussed a lot. All those in favor of option 3, that is leaving things status quo, say aye. Opposed?
No.
Motion fails.
Chair?
Yes.
So that we're not just kind of, well, I'm not just kind of left wondering, would it be appropriate or inappropriate to offer now a different round of motions, recommendations in terms of what we'd like the superintendent and staff to do? Just asking.
I don't know.
Well, I would suggest, if you want us to still look at other options, that we do a study session like potentially next week, because parents need to know if you're going to change boundaries, so we need to do it right away. And we can, as a group, come to consensus on what guiding change document, and then we can take it from there.
Excuse me, Mr. Williams, the 13th is an election day for townships. We
okay.
cannot meet on that day.
We can't do 4 to 6?
Tuesday. Yeah,
We'd have to do an early meeting.
we have to do an early meeting. But, or we could take another day.
Let's just say, we would schedule a study session fairly soon to establish a guiding change document.
thank you, Wayne.
I do want the board to understand that
No, except everybody.
it's not as easy as just kind of moving some lines around on a software. And we're kind of right smack in the middle of staffing and budgets for next year. We're kind of hoping to wrap up a contract negotiation fairly soon. So once we get the guiding change document, we'll work as fast as we can to bring a recommendation to the board, with the understanding that there'll be different families impacted, so you're going to have different families coming and say pretty much the same thing you heard before. But we'll have to make a decision, because they need to know.
Well, and I'm wondering if, as Ms. Seelinger suggested, that option B as it exists involves moving students from 4 elementary schools. If we simply removed 2 of them, or kept 2 of them, with the boundaries that were suggested in option 2, both Elton Hills and Gibbs, and simply said those 2 will make the changes and the other 2 we will not.
Well, the study session, I thought, was designed to do that.
Yeah, but I would encourage the board to not just think about just those 2 buildings, because that's the staff you talk to. We're going to have some buildings that are really probably going to have some open classrooms that aren't going to be used, because some of our suggestions were to move some kids, not so much to alleviate crowding, but to use some vacant classrooms that we have. But we can work that all out in a guiding change document. If that's what you want us to do, we can do that.
Okay, I think that answers the question.
Okay.
Anything else? Ms. Seelinger.
So for me, when I still go back to the option 1, option 2, the mapping. Option 1 and option 2, changing Gibbs boundary to Sunset Terrace, that piece of property, that neighborhood has not changed between either of the 2 options, correct?
Right. The only thing that's changed is a different group of kids out of Alton Hills, and then a different group of kids from Jefferson.
Correct. Personally, I'm going to reiterate that I believe that we should only be, my opinion, we should only be looking at the Gibbs to Sunset Terrace move, which has not changed in option 1 or 2, and the Elton Hills to Churchill Hoover, which has changed from option 1 to option 2. I feel like I personally don't know that I need a guiding change document to help my decision. I just feel like I want to get really focused on those 4 buildings that would be affected and those 3 neighborhoods that have already been proposed to be changed.
Ms. Becker.
I like having the guiding change. I don't know if I just think it really helps us focus on what it is that we're asking the administration to look at, and I think it helps us focus on, what is it that we're really trying to accomplish with it. So I don't know if it helps you make the decision, but I think it helps us focus on what we're actually going to be looking at. And maybe it's just exactly what you said. It's looking at these three schools and these three schools only, and a combination of option 1 and 2. So maybe that's how we phrase the guiding change document. But I do think it helps narrow down what because this is. It's as we've talked about it, as parents have thought about it, as district staff have in all their capacities have thought about this. This is a big issue to a lot of people. So I think if we can have something focused and said, okay, this, for the short term, this is what we're going to focus on. These schools have really felt they're overcrowded, or however we do it, but this is what we're focusing on, and this is what we're going to make our decision on. And I do think it's helpful.
It would be for me, just because even if you tell us just to focus on those 2 schools, we may make a similar proposal where we're moving a group of kids that's closest to the new school, and some board members might want, well, let's move kids that are already being bused, so let's move them instead. So if you give us guidance in that area, we know what groups of the neighborhood we should move. It would be helpful for us, because if not, I think we'll continue to spin our wheels, and we'll talk to somebody different, and then they'll have a different option. And if we ask 12 different people, here's an option, as long as it doesn't impact my kid, take that group of kids instead. So, and I'd probably do the same thing if I was a parent, but I guess I am a parent, but a parent that was impacted by this. So I think it would be helpful for the cabinet if we had a little guidance in that area.
Thank you. Mr. Burrow.
So we're not deciding any of this tonight. This will actually occur at the study session, and I'm good with that, and that's all I want to say.
Well, we can't decide anything at the study session, but we can hash it out.
Right.
We can't take a vote at a study session, no. I would just like to remind parents especially, and I still am a parent, and I expect to be a parent until I'm not alive anymore, is that as a parent, you think of what you think is best for your own students. As a classroom teacher or as a teacher in a building, you're considering what's best for that building. The board is charged with looking at however many schools we have in this district and about 18,000 students. We have to take the 30,000-foot view while still incorporating the things that come up from the ground. So I would ask all of you to please have some patience with us as we go through this process. It can be messy. I'm fine with messy, and I'm sure that at some point we will make a decision based on more information that we will be receiving at the study session whenever it happens.
Well, it's got to happen fast.
Yep.
As I said, we're in the middle of doing staffing allocations for next year, and if some boundary changes are going to change enrollments, that may be addition of sections or reduction of sections. So it's going to have to be rather quick.
Mr. Schlusner.
I'll just say I'm open to study sessions other than just Tuesdays for timeliness' sake.
Thank you. Any other discussion, comments? Then, this meeting is adjourned at 7:34 p.m.